Hey guys, welcome to a new movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Terminator film, Terminator Dark Fate. What's interesting about this new Terminator film is unlike the previous installments, this film just acknowledges Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 Judgment Day, so it completely erases Terminator 3, Terminator Salvation, and Terminator Genesis. So this is kind of the first Terminator film to kind of do that. It's kind of a direct sequel in a way to Terminator 2. So in a way, it's kind of trying to be the new Terminator 3, even though it's the sixth installment of the franchise, if that makes any sense. So for those who saw that 2018 Halloween film, it's kind of doing what that film did. It's erasing a lot of the installments that happened after the original and kind of being its own film this time around, while still being kind of a direct follow up to the select films that it's trying to acknowledge. So in this case, Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 still exist. Everything else that happened after that did not exist. Um, so in this new Terminator film, you guys, it's about a little over 20 years since the events of Terminator 2 in this movie, and there's a tragedy that happens to John Connor right away that I can't get into detail on. And then, like in all my reviews, I try to keep these as spoiler free as possible, so I'm going to keep things broad. I'll still try to keep things within context and explain things the best I can, but I am going to avoid spoilers all I can. So I will try to keep this as spoiler free the best I can. I did review this film rather late to kind of intentionally make this as broad and as safe as possible, and for those who are kind of late to the game like I was to seeing this film anyway. So back to the review though. In this film, like I said, a tragedy happens to John Connor. New things start to happen in the future. New things start to unfold. And there's a young girl we're introduced to named Dani. And she is very significant to the future. Similar to John Connor, she's kind of significant to the resistance winning the war. And so basically, similar to the other Terminator films and other Terminator fashions, somebody is brought back from the future and into the past to rescue her from a Terminator. This Terminator is called a Rev 9, and this Terminator can basically split into two. It can be an endoskeleton and a human body, and it can kind of attack you in two ways. So, like, one could go one way, one could go the other way, and then try to, team up and hit you that way and things like that. So that's what's kind of unique about the Rev 9. And so that's kind of the villainous Terminator of the film. And so the person who is brought back to the past, her name is Grace. She's trying to defend Dani from the Rev 9. And as this unfolds, obviously they learn about the future. Sarah Connor, who does show up eventually in the movie, and that's really not a spoiler at all because she's basically in the poster, in the trailers, in the marketing. So Linda Hamilton is back playing the Sarah Connor role as well. And so she's trying to help these two young girls be safe from this new Terminator film, figure out what exactly this new future entails, what exactly this Legion company is that is supposed to be bigger than Skynet now, and what exactly these girls have to do to stop this new Legion organization from doing all the wrongs that Skynet was once known for doing for. So in this movie, you guys, I thought it was all right for as far as what I thought of it. I know there's a lot of reviews right now that are really praising this film, really just praising it to the heavens, calling it like the third best Terminator film ever made. Unfortunately, I'm not a part of that group. I actually thought Terminator 2 is still my favorite movie of the Terminator franchise. Terminator 1 is kind of my second favorite film in the franchise. Believe it or not, I actually kind of like Terminator 3 better than most people do. So that's still kind of my third favorite Terminator film is Rise of the Machines, the third film. Dark Fate's probably number 4 for me. It's good in certain areas, but not so good in other areas. So it's kind of my fourth favorite Terminator film. Then Terminator Salvation would follow after that. And then obviously my least favorite, I think everybody's least favorite Terminator film is probably Terminator Genesis. At the very bare bottom, it just kind of messed with the Terminator timelines in any way you could imagine. It was just not a good movie. So Terminator Genesis is at the very bottom of the table for me as far as the weakest Terminator film goes. So overall, I thought this film was okay. It just didn't have that magic that the first two Terminator films had. I even thought Terminator 3 was fun to an extent. Yeah, it didn't have James Cameron for that movie or anything like that, but I thought the level of fun was more so there in the third film than it was here. So Dark Fate's kind of middle of the road for me. It gets things right when it gets things right, but when it gets things wrong, it really gets things wrong. So that's kind of where I stand with Dark Fate in this movie. So for my positives of Dark Fate, for the things I think that it gets right, I think this is a very broken Sarah Connor in this movie. You can really tell that she's very broken. She's gone through a lot. There's a lot that's happened since the events of Terminator 2. And obviously, with things that I really can't get into detail on, with things that happened after Terminator 2, she's just broken. She has just lost everything. She is basically committing her life to making sure every Terminator that's ever sent back into the past to potentially prevent the resistance in any way of winning the war at all. She makes sure that each and every Terminator that gets sent back in time is destroyed in some way, shape, or form. Now that Skynet's kind of in limbo after Judgment Day and things like that. So I like how we had a very broken Sarah Connor here, and Linda Hamilton once again did a great job playing the Sarah Connor role that we all know her to play as. Arnold Schwarzenegger once again plays the T-800. Similar to other Terminator films, this is not the T-800 from Terminator 2. This is not the T-800 from Terminator 1. This is kind of a Terminator that I guess in a way was supposed to be the Terminator from Terminator 3, but now that that film's been erased, this Terminator is now an evil one instead of a good one, and there's a whole story as to why this Terminator is now becoming good and things like that I can't get into detail on. And I guess without being too spoilerish, the life that the T-800 chooses after his mission happens, I guess you could say, the life that he chooses I thought was a very kind of cute, kind of clever thing to do with the character. It's definitely very different for a Terminator character. So I like kind of the post life he had after this big mission that he had at the beginning of the film. I kind of like what they did with Arnold Schwarzenegger's character and kind of the life that he ended up choosing for himself. I also thought overall Tim Miller did a great job with the action scenes. He is known for doing the first Deadpool film. And yes, he does direct this movie, and James Cameron was producer on this movie the first time since Terminator 2. Tim Miller, once again, similar to his Deadpool movie, has well-staged action scenes here. There's a scene on a highway that's very much in the spirit of the canal scene from Terminator 2. It's even very much in the spirit of a chase scene that happens in Terminator 3 back when that film was made. So he has well-staged action scenes here, and it's very much in the spirit of his Deadpool movie that he made. Mackenzie Davis plays the character of Grace, kind of the Kyle Reese character of the movie. I thought her performance in this film was very, very good. It's definitely a role where you can tell she went through a lot of training, had to really get in shape for the role and things like that, and she did a wonderful job here. Her fighting choreography was on spot, kept up with the action scene. She's definitely the star of the show whenever she's on screen doing something really tricky to do on screen and things like that. So I thought her performance in this film was very good. I also like the overall Rev 9 Terminator villain that they went with in this movie. I liked how he can kind of split in two and really make you kind of wonder how exactly they're going to win the fight against him, since the Liquid Terminator was already hard enough in Terminator 2. And yes, they do kind of step it up a little bit with this Rev 9 and make it harder for the heroes to kind of win the battle this time around. So the new villainous Rev 9 Terminator I thought was very well handled and well acted in this movie. For my negatives, though, why I don't feel like this film is in the league of Terminator 1 or Terminator 2, is I just thought this overall Legion organization they try to introduce us to, the supposedly bigger organization than Skynet now, I just didn't buy into it. It just felt like a typical evil organization that kind of takes over another evil organization, does a couple little new things with the endoskeletons, and does a couple little new things with their soldiers, and they're just kind of the evil people. I just really couldn't buy into it this time around. They really could have just done a Skynet route again. Who knows what kind of original stuff they could have done with Skynet this time around. But this whole Legion thing, didn't buy it at all. Really wish they could have just gone with a Skynet story again. I also thought the overall characters of Grace and Dani, as well acted as they were, the film tries to make them the next John Connor in a way for both of them. Grace is more so in the spirit of Kyle Reese, obviously, but Dani was more so in the spirit of John Connor that they were trying to do, and they were trying to make you care about them more so than John Connor, and I did not buy into it. So if we do get more Terminator films, I don't think financially we will. It sounds like this film isn't doing well in the box office. But if we do, I'm not really digging these characters too much. I just don't care about them as much as I do as the John Connor character or the Sarah Connor character. I just didn't feel as invested in these characters as much as I'm sure Tim Miller probably wanted me to feel. I also thought the overall script gets really boring at times. I would say about halfway into the movie, I was kind of checked out with it. I thought the script just really got boring. It really didn't try anything new. It really was just kind of introducing us to new things that I didn't care about, and they could have just gave me another great Terminator film rather than just introduce me to new organizations and new characters and new reasons for the resistance to win the war and things like that. So I thought the script just kind of got a little boring after a while. I also don't know where this franchise can go from here. So hypothetically speaking, if we were to get a Terminator 7 at this rate, I don't know where the franchise could really go. I don't know how they can incorporate Arnold Schwarzenegger again. I don't know. I don't know what they could do after this one. They really kind of put themselves in a corner here, and I really don't know what more they could do at this point. So, Terminator 7, I wouldn't greenlight it, but who knows what they have in store if we do get another one. I also thought this film wasn't quite good enough to erase that timeline from Terminator 3 on out, just because I really kind of like that Terminator 3 movie, Rise of the Machines. I felt like this film wasn't quite good enough to erase the whole timeline that happened after T2. So, my personal preference, just make us a Terminator 6. Don't worry about erasing the timeline. I thought that was kind of a bad choice on their part. I also thought the overall film had many cheesy and conventional moments. There's a scene where a Terminator cuts a fly in half that's still flying in the air. Really cheesy. There's just a lot of really conventional things like I don't know. There's just so many of them. I can't even think of them right now. So a lot of cheesy and conventional moments that I just couldn't buy into it throughout the course of this movie. So overall, I'm going to give Terminator Dark Fate a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's okay. Like I said, T2 and T1 are my favorite Terminator films. I do prefer T3 a little bit more as a part 3 over this movie. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. If you're a Terminator fan, you can probably just rent this one. Terminator Dark Fate's an okay film.